a second without your love. No, I couldn't last a second without your love. Lock me outside, leave me in the cold. Abandon me here, feed me to the wolves. But I wouldn't last a second without your love. No, I couldn't last a second without your love.
One day in, one day out, on top, then you're down. The highs and the lows keep swirling. Walk these streets like you're beat, then rise up to meet the break that you need. It's coming, just hold on. Hold on, yeah. Lift your eyes off the ground, you've only begun. Rising up through the clouds, no, never give up. Climb on, climb. New York back to LA, it's so hard to stay and rest in one place. Yeah, but I see what you don't, will where you won't, so don't dare let go. Just hold on. Hold on, yeah. Lift your eyes off the ground, you only begun. Rising up through the clouds, no, never give up. Climb on, climb. You're comparing yourself, it's like the kiss of death. Instead of doing what you're doing, you get caught up in your head. Feet on the road with your eyes on the prize, inch by inch, one step at a time. You're losing hope when you can't find a way to speed up the timeline. But one day, though it might be a while, it's gonna be worth every mile if you just hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Just hold on. Yeah. Lift your eyes off the ground, you've only begun. Rising up through the clouds, no, never give up. Climb on, climb. Lift your eyes off the ground, you've only begun. Rising up through the clouds, no, never give up. Climb on, climb on.
Hi, Inner Circle family. It's Linda Belzile-Buisson, and I'm back for a quick chat with you. You've probably heard by now the news about the live happening next Thursday, February 24th at 12 noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Listen, Tony has asked that you watch this exclusive video in advance of his live next week. It's from a private event that he did for his platinum partners, and it's taken from a multi-day workshop on, you guessed it, relationships. Now, this was created for an advanced audience, but Tony believes that you're all ready for this level. And just so you know, you do not want to treat this video like a quick hit and easy sort of lean back video. You're going to want to really dig into this one. Trust me, it's brilliant, and you'll be thankful you fully committed to it. So go ahead and turn off all your distractions, grab yourself some water, get in state, get your notebook ready, because this training is going to blow your mind and you want to take as many notes as you can. And remember to join us next Thursday at 12 noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern for Tony and Sage's Live. And when you come to the live, come prepared with your notes from this film, any relationship questions you have, and with your excitement. It is going to be epic. Enjoy. Have a fabulous week, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. Bye for now.
So the other day I was sitting down and thinking about like what screws things up. The answer is getting stuck, right? Who's gotten stuck some way, somehow? Say I. So I sat down with my team and I was like, okay, I'm gonna think of every situation I could possibly think of where people get stuck. And there's 21 that I'm aware of. I'm sure there's more. But there's 21 places you get stuck. So let me show you the way so you can identify when you're stuck what it is and what to do. Who's up for this real fast? Say I. Because all these are is a little checklist for you. So if you got stuck, you don't have to remember these 21. I'm not gonna remember the 21, I just made it up. But what I found is I try to look, and I've got a group of people around me, any places where we've gotten stuck, I asked people, I heard it, and I just saw some patterns. So I'm sure there's more than 21, but these 21 will pretty much cover most of what you experience. So if we're aware of it, it doesn't own us. The way you break a pattern, the first step to breaking a pattern, and all that's getting you is a pattern. Stuck is a pattern. The first step to breaking a pattern is the awareness of the pattern. The second step is the desire to change it, and the third is decisiveness and action. So that's all we got to do here, and we'll give you some simple solutions. Are you up for it? Yeah. All right, sit up in your chair and let's do it real fast. So let's look at them one at a time. Don't show them all, let's do them one at a time. First one, stuck in an expectation, stuck in ideals, stuck in rules. Now what's an ideal? Everyone in this room, we don't just have values, we have what we think is ideal. And some people, I used to say, I die for these values or ideals. That's the stupidest fucking thing I ever thought in my life. My life is more valuable than an ideal that right now I think is the most important thing. Usually, when you have an ideal, it makes you overvalue things. And when you overvalue things, you're out of balance. When you're out of balance, you have pain or suffering. How many follow that? Say I. So it will be a simple example. Or some rules you have. Life has to be this way. If you love me, then you'll never raise your voice. That's stuck in an expectation. That's stuck in a rule. No, is it possible to love someone and still raise your voice? Yes or no? So just think about these. So that's one. So how do you get unstuck? There's so many ways to get unstuck. Did we put one up there for this one on the other side? But appreciate. How do you get out of expectations? What do we already know? Trade your expectations for? Appreciate. So in your situation, the way you get unstuck is you stop yourself, you change your physiology, and you go, okay, what can I appreciate in this? Like I have these, what I call problem-solving questions that I've done since I was 19 years old. I made it for myself. And I played with it over the years. But one of the first questions when something goes wrong is, what's great about this? Now, why do I ask that? Because it's a radically different focus. Because write this down. Focus equals feeling, feeling equals life. Focus equals feeling. All your emotions come from what you focus on and the meanings you give it. And once you have a feeling, that becomes what your life is. You could have $1 billion, and if what you're feeling is rejected, life is rejection. You could have 20 people loving you, but if you're feeling insecure, life is insecure. So our emotional home, the quality of our life is the quality of our emotions. Where do you live most often? And that is controlled by your focus. And your focus is often shaped by your expectations. So it's time to ask a new question, because one day I remember, I'll never forget this, when I came up with the idea of primary questions. I was going through all these different things in my life, and I was like, God, you know, I'm just thinking about this. Well, what is thinking? I thought, what is thinking? Well, I'm right thinking right now, and what am I doing? I'm saying, what is thinking? That's a question. Is it possible thinking is nothing but asking questions? And my brain went, I'm not sure that's true. And I thought, well, what question did I ask to be sure it was true or not? Unconsciously ask, is it true or not? I said, is it possible that all thinking is answering questions? And then I noticed that was a question. It's like, it's not all questions, is it? And I began to realize that thinking is nothing but the process of asking and answering questions. So if I train myself to ask new and better questions, I'll get new and better answers, and I'll have a different life. You get it? So the solution to your expectations is, what can I be grateful for? What I'd say is, what's great about this? And my first answer is nothing. Right? I was like, no, I'm disciplined. What's great? There's always something great in this. I'm gonna fucking grow. That's one. This is gonna shift. I'm not gonna stand for this in myself anymore, whatever it is. And then my next question is, what's not perfect yet? Why do I ask that question, what's not perfect yet? It acknowledges it's not my idea of perfect, so it's not bullshit. And it tells me what I want to work on. What's not perfect yet is I don't like the way this feels. What's not perfect yet is we're not getting the job done. What's not perfect yet, it's not hitting the mark at the level I want. What do I need to change now? What do I need to improve now? If you want new answers, you got to ask new questions. If you want new answers in your relationship, you got to ask new questions. You have a primary question in your relationship, just like you do in your life. Change it, change your whole life. But all you got to do to get out of expectations and rules is appreciation. And by the way, it's just conditioning. And by the way, what do we do with her? I asked her a lot of what? Questions. See, if I want to do a card trick, I don't have it here, and I take out a deck of cards and I hand it to Lisa and say, Lisa, pick out a card. She pulls the card out. I say, show it to me. And she shows it to me, puts it back in the deck. Then I can lead her that card with questions because I know the outcome. I don't tell her, I ask her. I say, Lisa, in a deck of cards, there's face cards and there's number cards. And let's say she showed me the Queen of Hearts. That was the one she showed me, put it back in the deck. So there's face cards, there's number cards. Pick one.
Face cards.
Face cards, okay. And within the face cards, there's 4 types, right? There's hearts, there's diamonds. You know cards, right? Name one.
Diamonds.
Diamonds. Okay, what does that leave?
Hearts, spades, and
Hearts, spades, and
clubs.
And clubs, good memory. Pick one.
Clubs.
Clubs, what does that leave?
Hearts and spades.
Yeah, pick one.
Spades.
What does that leave?
Heart. Thank you.
Within those 4 face cards, there's 4 different types. What are they?
Jack, queen, king, and ace.
Pick one.
Ace.
What does that leave?
Jack, queen, king.
Pick one.
Jack.
What does that leave?
Queen, king.
Pick one.
Queen.
Ah, the Queen of what?
Hearts.
What was the card you showed me?
Queen of hearts.
This is all I do for a living, so you know.
Even
I
without
decide where I want you to go based on what you need. And then I lead you there with questions. Because if I tell you, you'll doubt it. But if you tell me, it's true. Now, along the way, we'll use different words, metaphors, stories, examples, emotions from the groom to get ourselves into the right state where then I can help you get to the meaning, not by telling you, but by asking you. And once you tell me, and you really own it, and I look for you to own it by getting usually multiple references, not just one, because a one-legged stool may break, then we know life will never be the same again because there's a new core belief, a new understanding. And that's where the freedom comes. Like having those 5 simple things we wrote on the wall that seem like nothing. Some of you, that already went deep in your unconscious. You don't even have to look at it again. It's going to affect you. You're going to remember something you've heard before. Life isn't fair, but you're going to have a different attitude about it. There's a gift in there. Some of you will read it again. Some of you will look at your notes. Some of you, it's deep in your unconscious. And I would never plant that kind of benefit in your unconscious. I would never do a thing like that ever. Because what's in our unconscious is usually what leads us until we wake up. So in case you didn't notice, the reason we're having these things where it goes on for hours and you don't eat and so forth, and you've been so amazing, guys, is not to make you stressed, is to put you in a state where your conscious mind can't hang on to everything. I mean, it'd be a lot easier on me and you if we did lesser hours and you'd probably be thrilled. But it wouldn't necessarily serve at the deepest level. See, brainwashing is not a bad thing. People got dirty minds. Some people need their brain washed just a little bit. How many of you need to wash your brain a little bit of some shit out of there? So I think brainwashing isn't a bad thing when you're doing the brainwashing, not someone else. So this is an environment where you get to wash your brain. Because when your brain's clean, your heart's already been perfect. The brain's been getting in the way, the mind, not even the brain. And so we've been doing some nice brain. Who feels like your brain has been washed a little bit this week? Washed a little bit. Good job. And maybe you want to continue to wash your brain on a regular basis after this on your own. Maybe you do that by putting yourself in the right state each morning, like something like priming or meditation or whatever. Maybe it's you decide to practice beautiful state and notice when it's not working and not beat yourself up and go, hey, now it's working, now it's not. Not working, now it's not. That means it's working. Maybe there's some things in your unconscious right now that you're not even aware of that are so fucking beautiful, and they're going to continue to unfold way beyond this week. That's not to say you won't have new challenges. Of course you will. As soon as you solve a problem, within short order, when you're celebrating, a new one will show up. Because the purpose of life is to grow. And when we grow, we have so much to give. When we give, we feel a meaningful life, which can be incredibly enjoyable. Even when it's painful, there's something underneath it that's greater than the pain. Meaning. So all of this is a game we've been playing to get ourselves unstuck, really. The whole thing is, all I'm doing is helping you get unstuck multiple times until you stay unstuck or you choose something new. I now choose what? I now choose to what? I now choose to be what? I now choose to give what? I now choose to enjoy what? That's, the change is that sentence away where you mean it. And if you don't initially, like a lot of times you make changes because you get to a point where you can't solve something, right? Your old model of the world, your old blueprint about what your father taught you or your mother or somebody you adored or some past relationship, that old blueprint is old. And when you apply an old blueprint, can you imagine today going and getting one of those original cell phones? Or any of you old enough to have one of those original Motorola cell phones? Raise your hand if you had one of those. It was like $4,000, remember it? It was like the size of a brick. It cost $1 a minute. And the battery lasted like 12 minutes. It's like, but you were so cool walking with this thing under your arm like a weight. What kind of idiot would want to use one of those things? Now, I can remember writing my first book, Unlimited Power, on a MacBook, a Mac. It was the early Mac, the screen was this big, the thing weighed 25 pounds, it was called a portable Mac. Lug it up in your back, and then I'll be typing my Unlimited Power, and then we'd get these black bombs. Anybody remember those black bombs? Anybody around there? And everything would just disappear. And when you want to copy something, you had to do it like 7 times. Now it's in the cloud. Tell me we're not spoiled. Tell me we haven't taken shit for granted. So the only way you can stay in expectations and rules is not see the consequence and not simply ask the question, what's great about this? How can I use this? What's beautiful? You have to do that with yourselves, my friends. You got to ask with the authority that you expect an answer, not what do I do? What the fuck do I do now? What are my options? Pick one. I ask that way of myself. Now, Russell Brand's a good friend of mine. We're having this conversation. You know Russell Brand, the comedian and speaker? He's a great guy. He's like, he looks at me in this different way because, you know, he's got more feminine going on and not as much access to his masculine. I have access to both those. And we're talking about this, and I said, this is what I fucking do. And he's like, wow, that's why you're Tony Robbins. Me, I go, it's okay, Russell, you can do this. I said, that's the problem, Russell. We need a little more authority in that voice. You need to ask with a demand for the answer. You hear me? So that's one, real fast. We won't take as much time. Head versus heart. When I've asked you this before, you can see that's what makes somebody stuck. You'll never find the answer in your head. Not for love, not for relationship. Maybe a strategy in your business, but even then you've learned if you've done heart breathing that the heart and brain together are way better than them apart. But I had to pick one, I picked the heart. Remember, before your brain was formed, we knew you were alive because your heart was beating. There was no brain. You didn't have a brain when your heart started beating. When you were given the gift of life and we knew you were alive in your mother, you didn't have a brain. Yes, you did. You had something wiser than your brain. It's called your heart. When you just ask yourself, am I head or my heart? I'm in my head. Let me change. Let me focus. Let me do 2 minutes of heart breathing. How many know what I'm talking about here? Right? And then ask myself from that beautiful place of stacking beauty, okay, all I need to focus on, all I need to remember, all I need to do is what? And your heart will have the answer. Easy out. But you can stay in your head for a lifetime. You can stay there for 10 years. As a defense mechanism. But the thing you're defending against, the thing you're scared is your feelings. And they're actually the gift that give you the chance to transform. And the more we resist, the more it persists. What's the third one here?
And just tone, for
Yes,
number
please.
1 and 2 for myself, just as something I do on my own internal world, if we were having in some way words or just a disagreement or discord, I catch my breath and I'll focus on my breath, maybe 10 breaths, and I slow my breath down. It helps incredibly to slow it down because it brings you to the here and now. And the question I asked myself, it was like, all right, sweetheart. And I talk to myself in those
Like
moments.
Russell does, yes.
Yes, I do, with a care and a love towards myself. And so I'll be like, okay, sweetheart, what did I miss? And I literally, it's like I'm looking to notice what I missed. And a lot of times mine made the assumption that he was angry. And when I slow myself down and it's, okay, what did I miss? And it's like, okay, shoot, Tone's sad right now. Or Tone, something else. I'll see what else is going on, which what does it do? It opens me and it connects me. So what did I miss? And slowing my breath down is just a practice of the combination of those two that I find really useful. You can try on.
And by the way, that is changing the core of everything. One of the patterns you'll see on the list that's further down, because I want to start with things that seem simpler, is changing your triad, change your physiology. That's what breath is, right? Change your focus. That's what asking a new question is, right? Change your focus, change the meaning, you're in a different state, right? Third, what's missing versus what you have. When people are stuck, they're focused on what is, which one? Missing. And what did I say? In order to be unhappy, you have to distort and delete, generalize and delete all the good things in your life. In order to be in a great place, you have to distort or delete all the bad things, delete them. So the truth is, when you're focused on what's missing, you're going to be unhappy. And by the way, this is the curse of achievers, because you wanted to develop a sense of success or significance at some point, which most humans do. You determined, I need to find out what's wrong so I can fix it. And you were right. That is great for your business. But when it becomes your habit in life, you're fucked. Because no matter how great it is, it's never enough because you're always focused on what's missing. And there's always something missing if you look for it. By the way, is there plenty here that's magical, yes or no? How many got plenty right now in this moment that's fantastic in this life? Say aye. The minute you focus on what you have versus missing, the game changes, you're not stuck, right? Another one, how about focus on what you can't control versus you can control? That's this whole lesson today. Are there things you can't control, yes or no? But if you focus on them all the time, and most of you don't do this, but in your relationship, some of you do. You don't do it in your business. That's why you're successful in your business. So you got to focus on what you can control. I can control who? Me. What I choose to think, what I choose to do with my body, what I choose to feel, what I choose to act on. I have total control of that. And by that, by the way, that's how I'm interacting with all of you. Because when somebody stands up, I'm just focusing on the outcome. How do I get them there? And then as I'm doing it, I'm hearing what their obstacles are. And all along the way there, I'm focusing on what I can control. If I try to focus on what I can't control, I couldn't help anybody in this room. But I can control what's going on in you by controlling what goes on in me. If I do what you expect to happen, you will do what you normally do. If I do something you don't expect to happen, you're going to have a different experience. You have the power to change your relationships by changing yourself, not by changing your partner. Another one real fast. Stuck on self versus others. The only way you can be in suffering is to focus on yourself. And it's natural to do that because that's a part of survival. But when you're in survival, you're not happy. What have we said? This 2 million-year-old brain is not designed to make you happy. It's designed to make you survive. When you focus on yourself, you will eventually get to survival because that's the nature of the mind. It's going to look for what's wrong and try to protect you. That's what survival's about. Figure out what to fight, flight, or freeze from. When you're in that section of your mind, life does not feel good. And most people get in that section of their mind by being in a relationship. Because where else can your deepest fear show up? Because most of you are pretty damn good. I know you don't think as good as you are, but you're way better than most of the population. I'm not blowing smoke. You just are at being able to still find significance within yourself. Some worth. Most of you do it through work, or your children, or friends, or sports. You're just not as good at doing it in relationship because you don't feel in control because you have the illusion I got to try and control them. And if you do it, they don't feel loved, and that starts a whole nother fucking pattern. So all you got to do to break out of this is focus on how can you serve. And if you come to a relationship with a focus on self, it's always a disaster. It's not your fault. It's the nature of the mind. But if you come to a relationship as a place to give versus get, then you have total control, and you're in a place where you're focused on the other. When you're focused on the other, your higher self comes through. changes the pattern that fast. So all what I'm doing when people are standing up, if you notice, sometimes I'll ask you some of the simple ones. That's why I started with the simple ones. Head or heart? And do we all know? When someone stands up and they're talking, how many of us know whether it's head or heart within a few seconds of them talking? So the cool thing is when you recognize, you see what's going on with them, now you see it with yourself, you just break it. Let me go to my heart. Let me breathe in my heart for 2 minutes. That's all it takes. Unify my brain. Think of 3 things I'm grateful for. Now I ask the question, I get a different answer because meaning is controlled by your state. So if you're not getting the meaning you want, you need to change your state. Not keep working on the meaning. That's why having that decision about being in a beautiful state continuously is so important. Next, stuck seeking to be understood before you understand them. Please circle that one or make that one a note. It is the most common pattern I see in your forms. They don't understand me. They don't listen. They don't hear me. They're not supposed to. Your job is to understand them, hear them, feel them. So what I'm reading is child versus adult when I'm reading that line. It's not judgmental, it's just you should see it yourself. I'm being a child right now. Nothing wrong with being a child, but this is a dysfunctional child that'll never be happy. If I seek first to understand you, which is, by the way, what happens when you stand up. I'm not trying to be understood, I'm trying to understand. And because I've tried to understand with so many people, I have quicker ability to understand because I have more context. You will by the end of this week too. How many already have more understanding about relationship right now than before you got here? Significantly so, right? So just understanding archetypes, just understanding, these patterns of attachment, just understanding the simplicity of what happens by someone being in a certain state or the meanings they create, okay? Stuck in a concept of perfection. How many of you get stuck about perfect? What do they say? Don't let what get in the way of what? Didn't even know the phrase? What is it? Don't let what?
Don't let perfection get in the way.
Don't let perfection get in the way of progress. But I love you all searched for something and filled it in. Came up with a bunch of different things there. It was really cool. That just shows there's many. So many ways. But perfection, when I've heard some people stand up, if you listen, it's because they thought the relationship should be perfect. Let me tell you what perfect looks like. Problems. That's the perfect relationship that has problems, but your attitude is different, which is these are gifts because once we solve this, we're going to go deeper. Everything makes us go deeper. We're going to have a richer relationship. I'm going to be a better human being. We're going to be a better couple. We're going to be better parents. We're going to be better friends. I'm going to be a better son or daughter. Rarely happens without a problem. But if you're looking for perfect, first of all, perfect doesn't exist. You know that. So what you really do is use perfect to try to prove to yourself how committed you are, even though you're not there yet, and then use it to beat yourself up. By the way, beating yourself up is a way to feel for yourself. Some of you don't feel for yourself unless you do something really painful, and then you feel sorry for yourself, or you feel for yourself. Dysfunctional pattern. It's a stuck pattern. Change it. How fast can you change this pattern? How fast? You just go, perfection's bullshit. Let me go for something great, and I'll make it better each time. What do you look in the technology industry? What do they call it there? Do they have the perfect product to start with? What do they do in the technology business? In order to have things that are life-changing, they start with things that are the prototype, or what's the word used in technology usually? And then you iterate. You start with a basic fundamental product and you iterate. That's life, that's your mission. That'll get you out of stuck. How about stuck looking through the eyes of a child versus an adult? Who knows what that means now based on what we've been talking about here, right? The child thinks it should all be about their names. The child thinks those 5 givens aren't givens for them. Everyone's gonna be loving and loyal. There's something wrong if they're not. That's not how life is. Everything should go as my plan, otherwise I'm pissed. That's kind of stupid, that's not how it works. Things should not change ever or end. It's gonna happen. If you shift and see what's the benefit in that, you can get out of it. Stuck in masculine or feminine. What do we want? Is your goal to leave here because you're a woman and be all feminine or a man all masculine? That would be the biggest mistake of your life. You want access to both. You want to be able to play with both based on what you need in your relationship, what you need in yourself, what you need in the situation. But most of us get stuck in one or the other. And under stress, here's the ironic part, most people that are masculine in their nature, whether it's a man or woman, doesn't matter, gay or heterosexual doesn't matter, I'm talking masculine energy, those people become feminine under stress. And ironically, feminine people under stress usually become masculine. But the whole goal to solve things, you know how you get stuck? You get stuck because you're only using part of yourself. That's the universal on here. You only use part of yourself because you got an expectation instead of all your options. You're stuck because you're only using your head, not your heart. You're only using part of yourself. You're stuck because you're focused on missing and you're forgetting what you have. You're stuck because you're focused on right versus wrong. I skipped that one, but that's a big one. Like, who the fuck believes your thing is right? How many have shit you used to believe that you would almost die for that today you're almost embarrassed you believe that shit? Okay, so whatever you think is right is for the moment, right? And by the way, you can be right or you can be in love. You have to pick. If you want to get unstuck, that's an easy way. But all of these, you're seeking to be understood, not to understand. You're not using all of yourself. Stuck is when you use a small part of yourself. If you want a universal understanding, you're stuck because you're not using all your resources.
Tone, can I mention one thing?
Yes, please.
On the masculine and feminine, be aware, sometimes it's subtle. The other day with my mama, and sometimes if you're trying to protect somebody, if I'm trying to protect, it's like there's that guard, and so it's more of a masculine control rather than offering your heart. My mom, has had some asthma and lung conditions, so she's coming into winter, and I was trying to get through to her, and I was like, Mom, we've got them a salt machine. And I was like, Mom, you really need to do the salt machine. It'll help you through the winters, if you do it 3 times a week. And
Cleanse her lungs.
Yes, to help her lungs. And so I was just kind of more really telling her, in my I know mind what I thought was good for her. And I didn't reach her. And so this is just the day we got here. I was thinking about my mama, and I was thinking about the winter and what she had, she wasn't feeling well in the earlier part of this year, and just how precious she is to me. And I called her. And I offered my heart, and I was like, Mom, I love you so much. And the salt machine I really think would be really good for you. You might want to consider it. It'd mean the world to me. If you don't want to do it, I get that too. And my mom was like, well, honey, if you're going to talk to me that sweetly, of course I'll do it. My dad, last night my dad texted me, and he's like, guess what your mother's doing? And, it schooled me, because sometimes even subtle, sometimes it's subtle in a tone of voice or in the I know mind, which feels like you're telling somebody rather than enrolling somebody. And I'm just sharing that because it's an area I can go blind, because I get quick and a little bit more, do you know what I mean, command, demand in the moment. And the illusion is that it's virtuous. I'm trying to serve my mom, but in trying to serve her, if from my I know mind, I'm not going to reach her. And it feels like I'm being like this. And it just, it was just the other day, and she was so sweet, and I hung up the phone, and I was like, we had the sweetest connection. Why? Because I got out of what I thought she should be doing, and I offered my heart, my feminine, the nourishment. And by the way, that's feminine and a masculine, whether you're male or female, it's just offering love, a sensitivity, an awareness, attunement in a different way. And my mama melted. She melted, and she heard me. Rather than before, I might speak a little faster, a little louder. My mom, if she watches Dr. Oz, she'll be like, oh, honey, I watched Dr. Oz today. And I'm like, Mom, I've told you that for 5 freaking years. It's so funny. But it's like, I don't care. I don't care how it gets there. But, just keep noticing, because sometimes it's more subtle than you believe. And, if I'm overtly masculine, of course, that's easy to recognize. But that one really schooled me. That was the day that we got here, by the way. The day that we arrived here, it was a conversation with my mom, and I was like, oh, wow, I missed that. And because I was just willing to tune, because I really desired to reach her, I changed my approach, and I just offered more heart. And my mama, and she's been like, oh, honey, and she's just being as sweet as could be. Why? Offering that sweetness, that sincerity. And I allowed her to feel my heart rather than what I believe she should be doing. I know mind, which sounds more controlling and expectation. Anyways, just something I'd share, because sometimes it can be subtle.
And sometimes that tone is not coming from a bad intent. Yeah. Sometimes you just don't know, depending on whether you're more water or you're more wood or you're more fire, you don't realize how your expressions, which may not be personal, are taken personal.
Yes.
Like, this woman knows me better than anybody on earth. Mary would probably be really close second. Billy, Diane, maybe the third and fourth. There's some people in my life that are my chosen family, and they know me and I know them. But it's interesting, that when we moved to doing these virtual programs, my wife, who doesn't usually quotes things and tells me somebody quoted it, it's actually my quote, but that's okay. Mary usually tells, no, that's Tony's quote. He said it about 5,000 times. So my wife has a short-term memory, which is useful because she doesn't hang on to problems. So, and she can change quickly because she doesn't hang on to shit very much, right? Including what the shit that I say. But, that's okay. And so, but what was interesting to me is, I'm attuned to the people I love most, obviously, just like you are. And so my core is wood. Now, when I go do a UPW or a large program and I've got 10,000 people, in order to keep people involved for as many hours, I have to increase the intensity. I have to reach the person at the top of the ceiling on the 4th level of a stadium and hold them for 12 hours at a time when they don't usually sit anywhere for more than 2.5 hours. They'd leave a $300 million movie that's 3 hours long. And I gotta keep them fully engaged. That requires a different level of intensity than I've even been demonstrating here. And so what's interesting is both Mary and Bonnie Pearl, they were at home and they were watching on television and they were just like, that's the best you've ever been. And they kept telling me that over this last year, you're the best you've ever been. Well, I'm always trying to be the best I've ever been. I pride myself in that, but it was a different tone in their voice, different look in their face. And it's like, what is it? Because I don't know, something about virtual. And what it is they're both auditory. So when I'm in a stage and I gotta keep 10,000 people and we're going 12 hours, and especially a UPW because it's the first conditioning process, like you guys have been with me enough, there's short-term cues I can do and your nervous system responds. We've trained each other, right? There I'm doing the training, all of it, for the first time with everybody. And so the level of intensity and the level of demand on my body is insane. But now when it's on camera, I can't do that on camera because I can know the camera magnifies everything. So I'm more subtle and I'm more auditory. I also tell more stories because I can't physically access everybody. So I put them in trance. That's what trance is. And my girls are all in trance. Tell me how incredible I am. I'm the most handsome I've ever been. I'm the best speaker I've ever been. I'm like, I'm the same fucking guy, right? But it's the auditory quality, and so it's important to recognize those things because then I want to bring more of that back home because otherwise I'm so wired, right? I mean, this last year and a half, 2 years was the first time in my life where I've been home. I've been a nomad my entire life. So imagine you lived literally doing 115 cities, and most of them are multiple days. 15 countries, that's a standard year for me until COVID. So, but it's allowed me to find another part of myself, but also tune myself. So you'll notice little things like visual, auditory, kinesthetic, like I hope you start to pick up. How many follow?
Yes.
Okay, what'd you say, honey?
Just sometimes it's in the nuances, And what I love for the virtual audience is he brings there's less force because he's having to project less. And so there's more tone. The guy that is at home and he's sitting around the table and we're laughing and there's just, it's like a different melody, it's different music, and we all play different music in this room and they invoke different pieces. And I love that for him. I love the less force, the less demand in that, even though he enjoys that as well. He enjoys both perspectives. And I also love that for the audience. And at the virtual audience, there's grandparents, there's children, there's just this beautiful inclusiveness. And we're entering into people's homes. And so he's tuning that and that harmony of that. I tuned myself the other day with my mom. And it's just amazing because then it's just like it's received at a different level. And so just catching yourself and sometimes just catching your tone of the voice, yes, auditory does affect me so much, but also the visual expression. It's like because I love him. I love Marie. You spoke a language of love earlier, and when you offered to Tony, I felt that so deeply. It was so beautiful. The love that you were extending him, I felt that inside me. It was beautiful. You were honest, you were truthful, you were vulnerable, you were authentic, you were giving, you were generous. We all felt you. It was such a beautiful expression of love. And that's the most beautiful thing. And when he's on stage and it's virtual, I feel like in this audience as well, it's like you get different parts of him as well because there's less projection. And I just think it's really beautiful. And I receive it differently. I feel it differently. I experience it differently, even though I've been married to him for 22 years. It feels fresh, it feels new. Feels alive, it feels unpredictable, and that engages me.
I told the same story, and she said, that's a brand new story. Same story, honey. Have you been to one of these? 22 years?
I might have been eating.
That's right, you were eating at the time, that's true. Good one. Show me the rest real fast. Is this helpful? Okay, I know we're just going through a list, but I think if you have this, once I explain it to you, you can look at it from now on and it's like your checklist. Okay, that's what it is. Because when you figure out what it is, I mean, that's what I'm trying to do for you. I want you to be able to do it for yourself, right? What's another one? We talked about perfection, child, masculine, stuck in a story. Have we seen that the last few days? How many of us have been stuck in a story before? What's the core lesson? Change your story, change your... It's not enough to change the content of the story, you have to change the structure of the story. Let me be specific. Because to her credit, this young lady here, Cheryl, she told us a lot of stories. They were different stories, but they all had the same structure. Someone was stabbing her, someone was victimizing her, someone was leaving her, someone was doing something to her. And by going through it together, she finally saw the pattern and was annoyed about it enough that she got rid of it. And notice, the things she once reacted to like crazy, she stood up and smiled from ear to ear. That was my little test for her. I didn't ask her, I tested her like in real moments, and you saw her just beam. That means she's free. She's no longer stuck. How many can feel the difference in this woman today, right? And what's the only change really? All she did was, she's the same human being. She was just as beautiful human being before. You didn't get to see all of her beauty because she had a story that was covering her radiance. Got rid of the fucking story, we got her. What a beautiful experience. The part we forget is that we are enough when we're authentic. We think we need a story to make it okay, or to make our mistakes okay, or our weaknesses okay. They're all more than okay. Stuck asking a disempowering question. Why does this always happen to me? Why can't I lose weight? Ask a lousy question, get a lousy. So these are easy. The solutions are on the next side, but you know what the solution is. Ask a better what? And I have questions that I have predetermined to ask myself when I get in a stuck place, the ones I just gave you earlier. What's actually great about this? To get your head around that when you're in the middle of something that's really difficult, but I keep asking with authority and I get answers. And then all of a sudden, it's not so bad. Well, what's not perfect yet? That acknowledges it's still not there. I see what it is. What do I need to change that? Pretty simple. Now I'm directing the mind, not let the mind direct me. Your job is use this thing. It's a tool. Don't let it use you. This is you. This is a metaphor for you. It isn't just physically your heart. It's your spirit. It's your soul. And when she said, my soul knows, I used language to get her to access a different part of herself. Then if I said, what do you believe? It's different, isn't it? It was a pattern change. Everything I'm doing, if you watch, is just simply helping you identify the patterns that are not helping you and find better patterns. And I don't predetermine them, they're already in you. I look for where they are in you. I find them in your experience or your references or your clients or the relationship you had or the pain you had, something. The ironic part is I'm like the Wizard of Oz. You came to me to find your head or your heart or your courage, and you already fucking have it. So all I do is act like a wizard and give it back to you. It's all you. It isn't me. So you can do this work when I'm not around, which is my goal. Because also if you do it for you, who else can you do it for? The people you love, the people you meet. Real quick, stuck in an unresourceful pattern of physiology. So ultimately, if you're stuck, you have to use a certain physiology, true? Does depression have a different energy or different physiology, I should say, than excitement? Radically different, but how fast can you go from one to the other if you just go for physiology, not the mind? Boom. Could we been in discussions where somebody's crying and I say something stupid, crazy, weird, bizarre, I break their pattern and they laugh. They were crying and now they're laughing. How fast did that change happen? All that is breaking a pattern. And so the most powerful pattern is change your physiology. That's where I go first. If I need to make a change, like if something's really going on, I do it. And for me, I use temperature because it's so extreme. Now, I also want you to know you can do it by changing someone's focus. I remember I was doing a seminar in Palm Beach at UPW years ago, and I didn't just explain what I was doing because I'm just doing it, right? But in that moment, this woman was so intense and so crazy, and she was like screaming at me and shit. And so I made her madder, deliberately. Why would I make her madder? Because when we started out, she was numb. Then she got mad. I can change mad to something fun. I can't take numb and change it to something fun. There's no energy in numb. So I increased her energy. Just like if you said, I don't know what I want, you go, tell me what you don't want. And if you really tell me you don't want, what'll happen? Your energy will build. And now I can take that energy and redirect it. So, but people, I could see people, I think that's why I told her, I could see people looking at me like, he's really pissing this woman off. He's making her worse. I was doing it very consciously. I want to build her energy to such a peak, and then I could snap it into a really great place, which is what I did. And afterwards, people saw the result. But the process was probably like 2 years ago with some of you during the relationship seminar with a particular couple you may remember. It was very intense shit, but it was fucking incredible. But people got caught up in the process, so maybe it's because of that. I told people, this is what I'm doing. I'm pissing her off because it's easier to take pissed off energy and turn it into something good than numbness. So you can change physiology, you can change focus. That's what I was just talking about. You can do it by asking a question, you can do it by making a statement, you can do it by doing anything. Now, I don't suggest you piss people off more. That's just a tool I've developed that can be helpful. I wouldn't try that in my relationship. You might get over your head as a beginner. Okay? Next, stuck in a disempowering focus, stuck in a pattern of disempowering language. Sometimes it's just the words you keep using over and again. I don't know, 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 I don't know. Where does that come from? And every time you say, I don't know, you keep yourself from the answer that's right in front of you. So if you notice, I don't accept it. Like, was I being mean to her when she made those giggles and I made fun of the giggles? I didn't make fun of the giggle at the end. The giggle at the end was an integrated giggle that was joyful. The other was a nervous giggle to try and not feel, which is why I imitated in a not so nice way on the surface quite deliberately, so she'd have no room to let go. See, what many of you do when you get stuck is you stay stuck. Why? Because you're in control of everything. So if I want to get you unstuck, all I got to do is move this wall in, this wall in, this wall in, and for some reason you're going to start moving the direction I'm looking for. Because you don't have any other choice. That's what the Dickens is, right? You've all been through the Dickens. You take away all the exits, and it's amazing how you move forward. You can't go back, you can't go present, you can't go forward without pain. Fuck it, I'm changing this bitch. I'm changing my bastard life. I'm going to make this thing work. So that's what we're talking about here. Changing, getting stuck in a pattern of time. This is interesting. Some of you, if you watch, and I hope now the rest of the week when people stand up, maybe this checklist behind you, oh, that's what he's fucking doing. Oh, look at that. And then you start doing it yourself. But this is a big one. Certain emotions you can only have in a time frame. Can you be excited about the past? No. Certain emotions are only available in a certain time frame. Excitement is about the future. Certain emotions are not available if you're in a certain time frame. Now, some people spend more time in the past, some more in the present, some more in the future. We do all three. But if you're stuck, you're usually stuck in a time zone. You're remembering something from the past, or you're imagining some horrible future, or you're deleting everything else in your life today, but only this one thing that's making you crazy. So all I have to do is change time zones, game changes. You're no longer stuck. Why? You're stuck. What's the universal principle? You're stuck because you're only using part of your experience of life. Part of your experience of life is the past, present, and future. If you're only using the past, only using the future, only using the present, you're going to get stuck. What was making her stuck? Creating a past that was painful, a present that's painful, and a future that was painful. So I chose to go for the future. Why did I go for the future? I can't change your past. I actually can, but it's easier to change your future because she really doesn't know what that is. She only has beliefs about it. I changed some things in the present so she'd feel different state-wise. Then in a new state, I got her to create a compelling future. I found a reference where love did exist in spite of her telling us for 30 minutes that she'd never loved anything or anyone. And I made fun of it and teased about it and got her to feel it. Clients, love those clients. Use that reference. Okay, what's different? Well, it's short-term relationships. Great, let's have some 6-month relationships where you heal. And what does that do? You all laugh. Why is that? That's a pattern what? Interrupt. Freedom comes when you break the pattern. Jot it down. That is the ultimate freedom. And when you're free, you can love. When you're free, you can laugh. When you're free, you can feel good. So all that's stopping is you're not free. Why are you not free? What's the universal principle? You're only using part of your experience of life. You need to bring out all the colors and paint you have available to paint your life the way you want. New words, new time frames, new focus on others versus self, new focus on what you're grateful for, what you have versus what's missing. All of them are just bringing more of you to it. Whenever you stand up, what I'm looking for is, where are you? What's in the way? What do you need? And let's go find those resources inside you. And once we connect them, like if I take, let's say, a football player who's a defensive lineman and he crushes skulls for a living, but he wants to get on stage, he's like Mickey Mouse. There's no certainty, there's no strength. All I do is I find a place in life where there is strength, hitting somebody, and I bring it to when he thinks about speaking, and all of a sudden he can speak. All right, what else? Almost done. Stuck in a time zone? Okay, last 4. Stuck in a modality. So in order to have an experience, you have to represent that experience to yourself. So if you're happy, you're representing it differently than if you're unhappy. Meaning, you're looking at a different image, or maybe it's closer, or bigger, or smaller. Most of you know submodalities from the UPW. Or you're hearing something in a certain way, or you're sensing it or moving in a certain way. So if you're stuck, you're usually stuck in visual or auditory or kinesthetic. She was stuck in auditory, she was stuck in visual. I changed multiple ways, and then I return to the preference when I want to lock in the new change. Is this helpful? Good. Last couple. Stuck in a distortion, a deletion, or a generalization. So that's where the question, like, Byron Katie's been a friend for years, and if you've ever been to UBW, you know, during Dickens, I'm usually more direct. Like, people tell me a statement, which is a clear lie. I know it's a lie. They know it's a lie at some level. And I go, what's the truth? That might not be the style in your relationship or in your business. So the style of, is it true? And the only problem I found with is it true in my experience, and it's her approach to doing it, is then people say, yes, it is true. And it reinforced. That's why I changed it slightly. Is it true? I mean, do you really have all the information to know for sure? Do we really know what everyone is thinking and feeling every moment? Or is it possible there's a distortion or deletion or generalization here? Once she says yes, she's no longer stuck. The door's open. She's not completely unstuck, but the door's open. We can now start to create movement. You follow? And that's what happens for people here. They distort, they delete, and generalize. You got to ask yourself, is this really true? Do I have all the information that's true? What if I'm wrong and it's not true? How do I feel when I believe that thought? What do I suffer through? Do I want to suffer that way? What would happen if I never had this thought? Oh, I'd have a great life. Well, let's do that shit. Right? Last ones. Overvaluing certain needs. How many of you seen how overvaluing certainty has fucked up your relationships in the past? Or caused you to have less passion for sure, right? Or overvaluing significance. Significance is an important need. But when you make it number 1 or 2, it's gonna fuck up your life because you have to always compare it to someone else. So you either have to lie to yourself and make it better than it is, and you know you're lying, or you have to surround yourself with people that are less than you so you can feel good, and you still know you're doing that too. So it doesn't really make you feel significant long term. But overvaluing one. So what do? Say, let me look at this through the filter of love. Look at me through the filter of variety. Holy shit, this problem is certainly providing variety today. Look at me through the filter of growth. Well, that's why I have this, so I can grow. Last 2. Stuck in learned helplessness. Do you know what that means? How many know what learned helplessness means? When you learn to be helpless. So they take dogs, I don't support this, but they'll take dogs, they do it with monkeys too, and they will condition them. This is one of the oldest strategies. They'll put them in a room, they'll open a door in a room, and it looks like a little mini tennis court, but instead of all the boxes, the 4 boxes being green, 1 box is yellow, 1's red, 1's blue, 1's green. And then what they do, they electrify one of the boxes. And so the animal starts freaking out. They don't know where the pain's coming from. Does this sound like your life sometimes? And so what do we do when we get pain? We try to do what? What do we do? What did you try to do in your relationship when you're in pain? Try to get out of it, even though he wanted it. Because in the moment, our brains go into survival. So the animal goes into survival and they try to get out of it. And so all of a sudden they jump off this red square to this green square and there's no pain and they stay on the green square. And if you open that room and you bring them in again, does anybody know what the dog or the monkey will do? Instantly goes straight to the green square. So what do? They electrify the green square and the red square. Now the animal's freaking out. They got pain wherever they go. But animals don't usually give up in survival, so all of a sudden they jump over the net, like a tennis court net. And now the red and the green are electrified, but over here we got blue and yellow and they're not, and they're on the blue and they're fine. So the next time they open the room, what does it do? Instantly jumps over the net to the blue, but then they electrify the blue. Animal's freaking out. Jumps around, finds a place that's not painful, and they see it's yellow. Yellow is safety. Not being loved is safety. See, we make shit up that isn't true. But thank God we're not monkeys, because what they eventually do is electrify all 4 squares. Kind of like what you experienced in your past. Like all of us have experienced in our past at some point. And then what does the animal do? Does anyone know? Whether it's a monkey or a dog, does anybody know what they do? They give up, they sit on the floor, they learn to be helpless, they just take the pain and they shit all over the place. That is correct. Fucking horrible is what these people do to these poor dogs and monkeys. But here's the good news, you're not a monkey. So you might think the floor is yellow and electrified or green or blue, but had nothing to do with those colors, had nothing to do with that room. It was the wrong situation. There's the right situation you can get to. And we have the capacity to get out of learned helplessness. There are 3 beliefs, jot them down when you're in learned helplessness, because when you're really stuck, one of your real stucks is you're in learned helplessness, which is where you were, and you're no longer there. It's where Cheryl was, and she freed herself. Amazing, it's beautiful, it's honorable. It's not dishonorable to get stuck. It's honorable to free yourself, especially when you've been stuck for a long time. It's even more honorable. It's an achievement. So here's the 3 beliefs you have to be stuck or to be in learned helplessness. Number 1, you have to believe the problem is permanent. Remember this? Write this down. No problem is permanent. Only your soul is permanent. In fact, what's the principle, one of the 5 givens of life? Everything changes and ends, so will your pain. And so will your laughter. And so you can create some new laughter, not the new pain. So first, you got to believe the problem is permanent. Second, you start believing the problem is pervasive. Another P, there's 3 Ps. Pervasive means since Christopher is having challenges in his business, his whole life is fucked up. Or his finances, or his relationship, or his kids. And that's what we do. We generalize, distort, and delete, and then we get learned helplessness. No problem is pervasive. No problem affects every part of your life. You can tell yourself that, but it's just not true. Then the third one is the problem is personal. There's something wrong with me. That's the hardest one, because when you start believing that shit, well, I can't change who I am, that's how I am, that's it. When you get learned helplessness, you just accept the pain. But all it is a pattern. So what do? I tell myself, it's bullshit, it's pervasive. There's aspects of my life that are great, let me find one. It's bullshit that it's permanent, only my soul is permanent. And bullshit, it's personal. Lots of people have felt what I felt. How many have had horrible feelings and forgotten that other people have had the same fucking problem at times, right? You think it's just you. It's not. What you experienced is not that different from other people. You just got really good at that particular pattern. And that good didn't reward you very much. And then finally, lastly, stuck in an element. If I'm only wood, if I'm only water, if I'm only constantly cutting, using my gold, I'm not gonna get where I wanna go. There's 2 reasons to learn this. 1, notice where you are, notice where you're going. What's next? So you start developing it. 2nd, be able to appreciate other people instead of thinking they're fucked up because they think differently. Or they go at a different tempo, or they evaluate life with different emotions. Thirdly, to say, I wanna learn to paint all 5 of these elements because it's life. And if I use more of me, I can solve anything. Right now, most of you are good at 1, you've been rewarded by using 1, whether it's wood or water or earth or whatever it is. But the truth is, if you use them all, nothing's gonna make you stuck. This comes back to the principle I said to start with, which was, if you recall, 1 choice is no choice. 2 choices is a dilemma. There's always at least 3 choices. And because I believe that, I find it. And that'll keep you from getting stuck also, is just knowing there's more choices when you think there are not. Now, here's what I want you to do with this, because a lot to process, but we can make it really simple. Circle the top 3 or 4 of these patterns that you use most often to get stuck. Read them one by one, and circle the top 3, 4, or 5 that you use the most to get stuck. Then write down, where does that tend to get triggered, and what are you gonna do instead? Go.
I close my eyes and I can see a world that's waiting up for me, that I call my own. Through the dark, through the door, through where no one's been before, but it feels like home. They can say it all sounds crazy. They can say I've lost my mind. I don't care if they call me crazy. We can live in a world that we design. things from far away. Special things I compile, each one there to make you smile on a rainy day. They can say it all sounds crazy. They can say we've lost our minds. See, I don't care if they call us crazy. Run away to a world that we desire. Gonna make, however big, however small, let me be part of it all. Share your dreams with me. We may be right, we may be wrong, but I wanna bring you along to the world I see, to the world we close our eyes to see. We close our eyes to see. Every night I lie in bed, the brightest colors fill my head. A million dreams are keeping me awake. I think of what the world could be, a vision of the one I see. A million dreams is all it's gonna take. A million dreams for the world we're gonna make. For the world we're gonna make.